you'd better put a chick in it. And make it fucking gay as fuck.
Going somewhere?
Lame!
Put her on a path of her own choosing, so that no matter which direction she takes, we'll always be one step ahead of her.
What?
That is so lame!
I think that we can all agree that writing and continuity of writing in our entertainment is very important. In Stargate SG-1 Season 2 Episode 6, Thor's Chariot, SG-1 goes back to Samaria to help the locals defend themselves and defeat a Goa'uld occupation held by Heruwa, the son of Ra and Hathor. The reason why SG-1 gets sanctioned to go on this mission, effectively behind enemy lines, is because in Season 1 they're the ones responsible for the destruction of Thor's hammer, the only defenses this planet had against the Goa'uld. In that episode we learn that Sam is now able to use some of the Goa'uld technology, due to the fact that in a previous episode she was the host to a Goa'uld. We also learn that Thor didn't just leave his hammer behind to defend the planet, but he also left a place called the Hall of Thor's Might, which is basically just a series of tests to see if the locals have grown enough to be able to meet the real Thor and the possibility of sharing their more advanced technology. And of course we meet Thor, one of the best characters in the entire series in my opinion. But while Daniel and Sam are completing these tests, Jack, Teal'c, and one of the locals named Orloff try to slow down the Jafar that are now hunting them. After Jack and Teal'c successfully kill a small squad, Orloff notices what kind of weaponry they have, and then this happens.
Now we are matched.
Showing that he is a warrior in his own right, and in a way saving their lives. We then hear the Jafar's horn. Teal'c says this,
O'Neill, another patrol approaches. We should leave this area immediately.
And they leave. But why did Orloff leave his axe in the dead Jafar? This is his only weapon, and he just leaves it there? Now, just for the sake of continuity, it would have been better for Orloff to walk over and pull the axe out of the dead Jafar as he's saying, now we are matched. Now, at the end of the day, the fact that he doesn't go and get his axe doesn't affect anything to do with the plot or the characters and their motivations in this episode or the series. But while watching this episode with a mate of mine, we both said at the same time, what, he's just going to leave his axe there? In that one small moment, it destroyed our suspension of disbelief, and we couldn't help but ask the question, why? Now, imagine that, but in almost every scene and 10 times more destructive to the characters and the plot. Well, that's what you get when watching and thinking about Disney Star Wars Ahsoka.
The show where everything's made up and the points don't matter.
That's right, they don't matter. Just like the plot of a porno movie.
If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that when it comes to Star Wars, I'm a massive stickler for the lore and canon of this universe, and especially the continuity of those things. Now, I could break down the massive lore and canon breaking issues in this series. I could break down and tell you why it's ridiculous that Sabine gets stabbed by a lightsaber and is left with nothing but a flesh wound, or how ridiculous the concept of her even being able to use the Force is, all because she concentrated hard enough. Or I could break down the ridiculous retcons, like Sabine being Ahsoka's apprentice before all these events. Or I could break down the ridiculous jangling keys. You know, that one episode where no one can agree on what the fuck is actually going on. But you see, any self-respecting Star Wars fan would already know what the problems are with all the stuff I just mentioned. No, today I want to talk about the writing, because you see, Ahsoka doesn't just fail as a Star Wars show, it fails at even being a cohesive or consistent television show. None of the plot or whatever counts as a story in this show is pushed forward by the characters, their intentions, their motivations, nothing. They're just there going along for the ride and have to make stupid and convoluted decisions to make sure the plot can move forward. Now, this show is that convoluted and riddled with problems that if I was to go through them all, this video would probably be hours long. So I'm just going to use a few of the more obvious examples to make my point. Hera was confronted on 3 different occasions and was asked if she had any evidence of Imperial Remnant activity.
Do you have evidence of Imperial Remnant activity or of Grand Admiral Thrawn's return?
Now, while the New Republic should already have all the evidence they need, with 2 Dark Jedi infiltrating a New Republic cruiser, killing the crew and breaking out a high-ranked prisoner, or the fact that the New Republic arrested Imperials that were building hyperdrive cores at the shipping yard, she still doesn't bring any of that up to counteract any of the Senate's objections. But instead, she antagonizes and berates Senator Ziono for not believing her.
Were you ever in the war, Senator?
No.
Just sat back and waited to see who came out on top?
What she should be doing is presenting her evidence. And again, I'd like to point out that this is evidence they should already have. But despite all that, Hera still disobeys orders, resulting in getting New Republic fighters killed, but is able to get away with it because Leia sent a message with 3PO to say that she sanctioned the mission. Hera doesn't act the way a general should act when questioned about this situation.
I see, and you protected the New Republic by ignoring direct orders.
No, I protected the New Republic by ignoring you.
And doesn't present the evidence she clearly has. Speaking of Hera at the shipping yard, when her and Ahsoka went there to investigate after Shin ridiculously left the droid behind so they could get a lead and of course push the plot forward, they spend a lot of time traveling from their ships to the control room. In fact, they have enough time to have a discussion with the manager about ex-Imperials working at this shipping yard, but also have enough time to have a discussion about Sabine becoming Ahsoka's apprentice again. After Hera notices that they're building a massive hyperdrive core, one that's too big for any New Republic ship, this happens.
For the Empire!
Just before Ahsoka jumps out the window, she tells Hera to get back to her ship.
Get the Phantom. Right.
In the time it takes Ahsoka to jump out the window, run after the ship carrying the hyperdrive core, and being confronted by Marok, Hera somehow gets back to her ship, so either Hera can run really, really fast, or she has a teleportation device that can get her back to her ship at the snap of her fingers. It's a bit like how they ignore hyperspace travel time in all of Disney Star Wars. It doesn't take any time to get to your destination, just snap your fingers and you're there. There's actually another example of this in the final episode, when Sabine crashes Ahsoka's ship. After that happens, Thrawn says this.
Assuming the Jedi ship is downed, their options to prevent that departure are now severely limited, if not impossible.
And the next time we see Ahsoka, Ezra and Sabine, they're already at his doorstep without anything else in the universe moving in time. Even Ezra mentions that this will slow them down.
Sorry to state the obvious. This is going to slow us down a bit.
But that couldn't be further from the truth. I don't know why, but they were already moving at snail's pace. By sending out the 2 TIE fighters and destroying their ship, which resulted in them riding the dogs, actually sped them up. It actually would have been better for Thrawn not to have done anything at all, but these are suitable losses, right? And his plan, right? But Ahsoka's ship is also magically repaired with a whole new paint job within about half an hour, perfectly timed because the plot needed it to be fixed. At the end of episode 6, Baylan and Shin are standing around the corpses of the bandits Sabine killed. They look up and see the bandits looking down at them, and Baylan says this.
The enemy of our enemy is our friend.
The next time we see Baylan and Shin in the next episode, they've already spoken to and successfully recruited the bandits to help them fight and attempt to kill Sabine and Ezra, all off screen. Now, this would have been a great character moment for Baylan and possibly even Shin. We could have seen what Baylan said and how he either convinced them or manipulated them into helping him. Basically, what did he say or do to motivate the bandits into helping him? And after having their friends and possibly family murdered by someone with a lightsaber, I find it hard to believe that these bandits would just trust Baylan and help him. Instead of getting the possibility of a good character moment, we get absolutely nothing. And last but certainly not least, in one of the final scenes in the final episode, Ezra has been able to successfully get back to his home galaxy, successfully hiding himself on the Chimera the whole time they were traveling back, after successfully killing and stealing the armor off a night trooper. He successfully steals a shuttle and leaves the Chimera undetected, all off screen. He then successfully makes it back to the New Republic fleet. By the way, how does he even know where the New Republic fleet was?
Don't ask questions.
He then somehow gets an A-Wing escort onto the main New Republic cruiser, exits the shuttle still dressed in the Night Trooper armor, and Hera and Ezra have one of the most lackadaisical reunions I think I've ever seen. Before the A-Wings gave him an escort, didn't they hail him before just allowing him to dock on a New Republic cruiser? Clearly not, because they still think it's some kind of threat when they're pointing their blasters at him as he's exiting the shuttle. But then in the reunion, all Hera says is,
Ezra?
And Ezra replies with this.
Hi, Hera. I'm home.
And Ezra slowly walks towards Hera. When Ezra is leaving the shuttle, Hera doesn't say a thing. She should be saying freeze, don't move, stop advancing, who are you, anything, but we get absolutely nothing. But it's like that so Chopper can be like their little lapdog, and he is the only one that somehow recognizes that it's Ezra. But even after Hera recognizes that it is Ezra, she doesn't do or say anything. Run over to him, give him a hug, you haven't seen him for about 10 years. Ask him, how have you been? Where is Ahsoka and Sabine? How did you get back? Is Thrawn back too? Absolutely anything at this point would have been better than the absolute nothingness we got from this moment. And if you want to go even deeper, in the time it took Ezra to get back to his home galaxy from the galaxy he was stuck in, Ahsoka and Sabine flew down to the planet's surface and met back up with the turtle people. Just another example of Disney's hyperspace teleportation. Let's rapid fire this shit. How the hell do we have a map to Thrawn's exact location hidden in an ancient temple when he only left the galaxy approximately 10 years ago? Why are there massive pauses? In some of the simplest conversations. The dialogue is an absolute disaster.
Sorry.
I know.
I love you.
I know.
Ezra says he doesn't need a lightsaber or a weapon because the Force is his ally,
No. The Force is my ally. That's all I need.
but then proceeds to steal a blaster and gets the shit kicked out of him and then goes on to build a whole new lightsaber. This entire series is riddled with questions and characterization disasters. No one actually acts the way a normal person would, but these monumental writing issues aren't exclusive to the Ahsoka series. The Mandalorian. How do tracking fobs work? What are they actually tracking? How can Grogu force heal when he's not a part of a dyad? Especially after the justification for why Rey and Kylo can do it is because they are a dyad. Why does Luke not ask any questions about what the fuck is going on the Imperial cruiser at the end of Season 2? How did any part of IG-11 survive this?
I must be destroyed.
The Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Reva's motivations for kidnapping Leia and wanting to get Kenobi out of hiding is all because she wants to kill Vader?
You're not serving him, are you? You're hunting him.
She also knows that Vader is Anakin. Oh, and so does Baylan and Thrawn somehow. After they agree to not communicate,
I know we said no communication.
Bail sends Obi-Wan a transmission saying that he's fearful that he's being captured and goes on to say that he'll go to Tatooine and look after the boy.
But your silence worries me. If he's found you, if he's learned of the children, if I don't hear from you soon, I'll head to Tatooine. Owen will need help with the boy.
If he thinks Obi-Wan's been captured, then who the hell does he think is going to get that message? And why would he send such a ridiculous message? And don't even get me started on the rematch of the century. The Andor series. How does Luthen have all this Force-sensitive material in his shop on Coruscant and not have been raided by Palpatine and or Vader? How is it that Andor and his mate are the only ones that make it back to shore after the prison break? Does that mean by him breaking them out, he caused the deaths of thousands? Why didn't Luthen pay back Mon Mothma the 400,000 credits out of the 80 million credits as she embezzled that from herself to give to Luthen? Why didn't Mon Mothma go to Bail Organa for the 400,000 credits instead of selling off her goddamn daughter? Why does Andor not care about finding his sister anymore, especially after the lady in the brothel said that she did work there?
There was a girl from Canary, but she left several months ago.
That means his mum was wrong when she said to stop looking for her because she's dead.
Stop searching for your sister. It's a fantasy. There were no survivors on Canary.
And he didn't even correct her. These are just some of the many questions that are yet to be answered and probably never will be. And there's also the Book of Boba Fett, The Bad Batch, and Tales of the Jedi. All of these shows break Star Wars lore, canon, and continuity in some way, shape, or form. And not just George's Star Wars, but their own lore, canon, and continuity too. When you really start looking at this stuff, it doesn't really make much sense.
Much sense?
Now, I know people try to justify this and try to answer these questions by using their ridiculous headcanon, which shouldn't even be necessary. The people creating these shows and creating the stories should be the ones explaining how these things work and how it makes sense in-universe. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned Stargate SG-1 and how in that episode we found out that Sam is now able to use Goa'uld technology. Now on the surface, that sounds ridiculous because in a previous episode it's been explained that only Goa'uld can use that technology. Not even the Jafar are able to use that technology, even though they have a Goa'uld in them as they serve as like an incubator. But this was all set up and planned through the series. In Season 1, when they first go to Samaria, they met Kendra, a woman that was feared by the locals because she used to be possessed by a Goa'uld. But after the Goa'uld that was in her was killed, she still retained the ability to use Goa'uld technology. And then in Episode 2 of Season 2, Sam gets inhabited by a Goa'uld from the Tok'ra, named Jolinar.
The Tok'ra are real, no matter what Apophis has told you.
By the end of that episode, Jolinar sacrifices himself to save Sam, but that incident gave Sam the ability to use the Goa'uld technology. When she first surprisingly uses the technology, it's even recapped in the episode by Daniel.
Well, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Why?
Well, Kendra retained the ability to use Goa'uld technology because she used to be a host to a Goa'uld. You must retain the ability because you were a host to Jolinar.
Just in case you missed it and still don't understand. No headcanon required. It was planned and explained by the creators of the canon in-universe. Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Tony Gilroy, Deborah Chow, Robert Rodriguez, and the list goes on. All these creators of this new Disney Star Wars not only have no idea how to tell a good cohesive story, but also have no idea how to write good cohesive Star Wars. Disney Star Wars is an absolute abomination of real Star Wars. George's Star Wars. The unfortunate thing is they continue blaming the fans that criticize their horrible writing.
When you point a finger at someone in blame, there are 4 fingers pointing back at you.
3. That's weird.
Instead of taking responsibility for the absolute garbage they're creating, they wrote it, they created it, they made it, not the fans. All we did is watch it, hate it, and criticize it, because it's shit.
Well, that was a load of shit.
But what about Thrawn? Thrawn is great. Thrawn is a character we all know. Thrawn has a lot of credibility. So then you ask yourself, is it right to use him? And can we use him in a way that's similar to the books? Or are we using him and it's going to go completely into left field? And there have been times when we wanted to use things from the EU and I was like, yeah, but we can't use it that way. So why? I don't want to use it and change it. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to use it and make it something completely different. That's rude.
You're a fucking hypocrite.